Okay, we find ourselves here again, because the people inside that building right there do not care about press freedom or truth or democracy or the rule of law. Today, Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 marks the 4-year anniversary of the arrest of journalist and publisher Julian Assange, a man whose news organization has a 100% record of accuracy over the course of its existence. In the past 6 years, we have seen a lot of pearl clutching about misinformation. It's weird then that there's not more support for the one guy on planet Earth who we know for sure has never published any. In the past week or so, we've also heard a lot of people, in particular people in positions of power, lament about how journalism is not a crime. They're right, but if they meant that, Julian Assange would have never been arrested and he wouldn't be sitting in a Category A prison awaiting extradition to a country that was plotting to murder him. If you're familiar with the Action for Assange Vigils that I co-host, you know that we like to start each show with what we call the numbers, which is just a running count of the number of days for certain things. And although today the focus is obviously Julian Assange, I do want to spend just a little time remembering a few other political prisoners as well. It has been 17,230 days since Leonard Peltier was arrested. He has been incarcerated on dubious charges every day since. He is aging and in ill health and needs to be sent home to live out his remaining days with his relatives. It has been 15,098 days since Mumia Abu-Jamal was arrested, another case of being incarcerated under dubious charges. Mumia is a fellow journalist and activist who is also aging and in ill health. We remember him and his fight today too. It has been 740 days since courageous whistleblower Daniel Hale pled guilty to one charge under the Espionage Act. Hale is the whistleblower who exposed the true horror of the drone program, and he should be free today and celebrated. As for Julian Assange, today marks a total of 4,507 days of illegal and arbitrary detention, and it was 4 years ago today, 1,460 days, that he was essentially kidnapped from the Ecuadorian Embassy and sent to the Guantanamo of the UK, Belmarsh prison, all foretelling the truth. We do have an amazing list of speakers. I appreciate you guys coming out. It was kind of a late notice event, but we have an amazing list of speakers, and I'm very appreciative to you all for being here and joining the fight. Our first speaker is Elizabeth Murray, who actively campaigned against the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, despite being or acting as Deputy National Intelligence Officer for the Near East in a 27-year career in the U.S. government. Elizabeth is a member of the Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. Big fan of that group, love them. Shout out to Grandpa Ray McGovern, and has actively campaigned for truth tellers Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, and Julian Assange. And she visited Julian twice during his asylum in London's Ecuadorian Embassy. Everybody give it up for Elizabeth Murray.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And yes, I want to say that it wasn't too long ago that I was one of these people wearing high heels and dressed up and not looking at anybody else, just working 10 hours a day. And, you know, I was ashamed when I first visited Julian in the embassy. I told him, you know, I was in the government, I was in the belly of the beast. And, you know, I feel bad about that because in my heart, you know, I really believe in truth and justice, and I know what our government has done. And Julian was sitting right next to me, and he smiled at me and put his arm around me, and he said, no, you're wrong. It's people like you that make WikiLeaks possible. And I want to leave everybody here with that message, especially to those of you who may be working for a particular agency, but maybe you don't want yourself to be known. You know, there is always that person of conscience, whether it's someone like Chelsea Manning or Dan Hale, but it's thanks to the people who are in government that the truth has come out. WikiLeaks and Julian were just the vehicle. They were the messenger. They were not the people that actually did the leaking. So the people in government, all the people in every building, the FBI building is right behind us. That's where the hope for transformation lies, and we mustn't forget that. You know, everybody has that opportunity to make a difference. So last time I was out here actually was about 2 years ago, and I was handing out leaflets for Julian Assange right in the middle of the street while I was crossing. And there was a woman coming out of this Department of Justice building. Hi, Ed. A friend from Washington State. So I was out there leafleting, and there was an employee, a woman who came out, and I asked her, would you like to have a leaflet? Would you like to learn a little bit about how important Julian Assange is to our country and to the truth and to journalism? And she wouldn't even look at me. She just looked straight ahead and she said, Julian Assange is a traitor. And you know, that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful that Julian's father, John Shipton, and Julian's brother, Gabriel Shipton, are at this moment doing a tour of the United States. How many of you have seen the movie Ithaca? Excellent. Okay, because it's that kind of ignorance. And you know, I can't really blame the woman, because that is what our media have been trumpeting since Julian Assange was taken prisoner and basically became a political prisoner at the behest of the US government. So it's up to each of us to, you know, invite your family members, your grandkids, take them to see the movie Ithaca, and it will really, really bring it home that this is about a terrible injustice and about the love of one family to save their husband, their father, their brother from what is going to be a slow and certain death. Now, the U.S. is becoming an outlier, not just because of things like de-dollarization or the way things are going in the Ukraine war, but because of its attitude toward Julian Assange. Look at the world, look at all of Latin America. So many of the leaders have come out in support of Julian Assange. The president of Mexico, the president of Bolivia, the president of Colombia, I could go on and on, Argentina. Everyone has come out in favor of Julian Assange. Also, you know, the major human rights organizations, Neil Meltzer, the former UN rapporteur for human rights and torture, Amnesty International, now even major mainstream papers like the New York Times, the Washington Post, the editorials are all talking about how important it is to release Julian Assange. They realize that they are next. And the other thing about this is, you know, Julian, as you know, is not the only journalist who has been kidnapped and taken hostage. But I'm sorry, the credibility of our country to stand up, for any official to stand up and say, this is wrong, you know, to X country, you can't do this. Well, they will need to sit down and hang their head in shame for as long as Julian Assange is behind bars in Belmarsh prison. So I don't want to take up too much time, but just to reiterate, you know, Julian Assange is not incarcerated for any crime. He is incarcerated for exposing our government's crimes, and that was the unforgivable commission of sin. He exposed also the corruption, the waste, the fraud within the Democratic Party, the dirty emails of Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Why do you think he's still languishing in jail? Gabriel Shipton, Julian's own brother, has spoken out to say that he actually thinks they want Julian dead, that they want him to slowly rot away in prison, and that is part of the strategy. And of course, anyone who has gone back and looked at the Stratfor emails, well, that's exactly what the strategy was. Tie him up in the courts, let it take years and decades. So this man's life is in danger. Back in May 2019, when Neil Meltzer visited Julian Assange at Belmarsh prison, he actually found evidence. They did a thorough check of him. They found evidence of psychological torture. So this is absolutely unconscionable, and there should really be a huge outcry in this country, because this is our government and we have the right to change that. And I just want to reiterate what I said earlier about people in the government. There are always people on the inside with a conscience, maybe some of you, who can anonymously pass on information that is in the public interest. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Thank you.
Sorry, I was distracted. Just so everybody knows, there are some pre-addressed postcards on the table over here. I think they're in the back left corner. They're pre-addressed. There's pens over there. We have stamps for you. All you have to do is fill it out. They're addressed to Merrick Garland. Just tell him you would like to see the charges dropped against Julian Assange, and we will mail them for you. Make it as easy as possible. Okay, so our next speaker is Garland Nixon, who is a political analyst and a progressive radio talk show host. Garland has served on the ACLU National Board and has appeared on multiple TV and radio programs, and he is a Zen master. I'm still waiting for him to teach me his ways. Everybody welcome Garland Nixon.
Hello, hello. I think it's good that we're meeting in front of the Department of Justice, and let me tell you why. Little story. Years ago in my former career, I was trained by the Department of Justice in something called asset forfeiture and seizure laws. Basically, if the cops pull you over and you got $1,000 in cash, they can grab it and say, you have to prove where that money came from. And we saw that I could go at instance after instance about injustice. Most people don't understand asset and forfeiture and seizure laws, but they can basically say, look, this money is illegal. It's not you. And you have to prove that it's not legal. So later on, when I actually worked for the ACLU, one of the things that I did as working for the ACLU was I worked in the legislature in Maryland to try to stop these asset forfeiture and seizure laws. And we used to have a saying, there's only two kinds of people. There are people that understand asset forfeiture and seizure laws and people that support them, because you can't do both. And we always realized everyone that understood them said, well, what? No, they can't do that. That would be unconstitutional. And we're like, exactly. In theory, it's unconstitutional, but the government allows it to happen. And people quickly converted. All they needed to do was know the truth. And I think that's what we're up to. Think about this. Our last speaker said, someone said, Julian Assange is a traitor. To what country? He's Australian. He's a traitor to Australia. He's not charged in Australia. He's charged here. And take it one step further. He's a traitor for doing what? What is the allegation of him being a traitor? The allegation is that he somehow got his hands on emails that were hacked and stolen by the Russians from the DNC servers. This is the allegation. The Russians went into the DNC servers, they stole these emails, they hacked in there, they passed them on to him, and then of course he let everybody see the emails. There's one problem with that, a big problem with that. A guy named Sean Henry, who was the CEO, a former FBI official, he was the CEO and I believe still is, of CrowdStrike, the only company that has ever examined the DNC servers. He was called before Congress, and under oath, he testified that CrowdStrike never found any evidence that anyone took emails from the DNC servers. He never found any evidence. He testified under oath that the only company that examined the DNC servers never found evidence that anyone took emails from the DNC servers. How many people out here, if you told them that, they'd look at you with three eyes, like you had three eyes, right? How could the Russians steal emails, or anyone else, from the DNC servers and hand them over to Julian Assange when the only person who ever examined the DNC servers said nobody ever took it? And we know from Ray McGovern and the people that, veteran intelligence professionals for sanity, that they ran forensic examinations and they said it wasn't a hack, somebody downloaded these things and handed them over. Now, our job is to get this information out. This is not hard to find. If you want to find it, you could start searching on the internet and find it in a couple of minutes. But most people are walking around saying things like, he's a traitor, without even thinking about the fact that he would have to be an American citizen to be a traitor. And again, that ignores the First Amendment implications here. So I just want to thank everybody for coming and remind you that what we're doing and what is important here is that we're all doing work. That just coming to a gathering like this is incredibly important, and we need to do this. But when you're away from the these gatherings, and when you're such as handing out pamphlets or whatever, that it's important for us to dig down, whether it's on Twitter, it's on social media, it's talking to friends, to get this information and have it prepared so that when someone says, you know the talking points, he's a traitor, you're like, you know, I was just waiting for you to say that, and let me explain to you why that doesn't make sense or why that's wrong, or let me give you the real information on that. Well, he got emails from Russia. Well, as Ray McGovern will do, Ray McGovern will say, well, let me tell you, on December 17th, such and such a day, Sean Henry said this, blah, blah, blah. That you can give people, this is the date, this is the time, it was before Congress, it was before this committee. There are only a few talking points. And if you kind of memorize those, if you kind of have those links at hand, anytime you have that discussion, you can take advantage of it. Anytime you call into a radio talk show where you hear them saying something that you feel that you need to respond to, you can take advantage of that and you can give the correct information out to people. So keep in mind, I believe the same as I do with asset forfeiture and seizure laws. There's only two kinds of people when it comes to the issue of Julian Assange: those who oppose his release and those who understand the implications of Julian Assange being held and prosecuted. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Keep up the good work. Keep pushing. Enjoy. And I always say this, something I always say, maybe I'll give, since I got a minute or so, got another minute, Misty. I'll give many people have heard it, but I will give my ship pushing story. I'm sure I know a lot of people have heard that, but I always say this about activism. And that is, there's a guy walking down the docks, and he sees this guy pushing against a gigantic aircraft carrier, standing on the side of the docks, pushing against this aircraft carrier. And he walks up to him and he says, "You're wasting your time. You are never going to move that aircraft carrier. It's a complete and total waste of time. I mean, come on, give up, dude. You're wasting your time. You're just pushing against the aircraft carrier. The thing's a quarter of a mile long. Get out of here with that." And the guy says, "Well, I know that." He says, "Well, then what are you doing it for?" He says, "It's a hobby. I'm an aircraft carrier ship pusher guy. It's kind of just what I do. I enjoy doing it." And the guy turns around. He has no answer. He walks away. Here's my point. Don't be the angry activist. Enjoy your activism. When you're doing things to work with this, to work on this issue, when you're doing things, when you're making signs, when you're calling in radio talk show hosts, when you're handing out whatever you're handing out, get with friends, go have a coffee, go have some fun, enjoy it, understand the seriousness of the matter, but don't worry about, oh my gosh, we're not getting anywhere, it seems like nothing will ever happen, this isn't going to work. Enjoy what you're doing. Do it because that's who you are and that's what you do, and that's just it is who you are coming out of you. So everybody, keep up the good work. Enjoy your activism. Work hard. Make sure you got a couple of talking points that are ready, wham, to hit people with, and free Assange.
Everybody give it up for Garland Nixon. And hey, he was saying enjoy your activism. I need that message a lot, because sometimes I don't. But something that you can do right now, and something that my friends were working on this morning as they went to Congress to try to pressure some of their elected officials, something you can do right now. Rashida Tlaib has the letter out. You can put pressure on your congresspeople and your senators to sign on to that letter. Send an email, send a tweet, call, whatever you can do. Now is the time to put that pressure on. So keep that in mind. Go home, make phone calls, send emails, all that good stuff. I know it seems as if it's probably ineffective, but when they all pile up, that's when we start to make some noise. So up next, we have an amazing treat. We have Lucy Murphy, who is a DC-based international activist. As a vocal artist singing in 10 languages, she musically supports all who are oppressed. Lucy is the founder and director of the Black Workers Center Chorus and organized the February 2022 Free All Political Prisoners action at the Department of Justice. Everybody welcome Lucy Murphy and the Black Workers Center Chorus.
Good afternoon. This is a system addicted to war, addicted to murder and theft. And anyone who opposes it is considered a traitor. I think we're all traitors here because we want peace, we want justice, we want abundance for the human race. And I'm really privileged to have one of my leaders, Frankie from Harriet's Wildest Dreams.
Hello, hello.
Harriet Tubman, remember her? Harriet's Wildest Dreams, and the mayor of the homeless, Eric Sheptop, who is the reincarnated voice of Paul Robeson, whose birthday, 125th birthday, we celebrated on Sunday. I'm going to add, because we need to recognize that the war is not only abroad, but there's a war being made on people right here in Washington, D.C., in the United States of America. I'm going to ask Frankie to lead us in Mama, Mama, Can't You See?
All right. Thank you, Miss Lucy. Yeah, I want everybody to know that we have prisoners right here in D.C. who every day we watch the courts, who are asking for their freedom, who are held pre-trial. D.C. is 47% black, and 98% of the people who are incarcerated in DC jail are black. That's a shame, y'all. That is a shame. And the things that we can do on the ground right now are make sure that we are watching these judges, because when they are allowed to do it, when they're allowed to do it on the local level, then they can do shit like this federally. Then they can do whatever they want. And to rein in what Miss Lucy said, yes, this is for all oppressed people. Repeat after us. Mama, mama, can't you see?
Mama, mama, can't you see?
What the system's done to me?
What the system's done to me.
They lock us up, they shoot us down.
They shoot us down.
Ain't no justice in this town.
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 Papa, Papa, can't you see?
Papa, Papa, can't you see?
What the system's done to me?
What the system's done to me.
They lock us up, they shoot us down.
They lock us up, they shoot us down.
Ain't no justice in this town.
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 Say, ain't no justice in this town.
Ain't no justice in this town.
Justice for all oppressed people.
None of us are free.
None
None of us are free.
None of us are free.
None of us are free.
None of us are free if one of us is chained. None of us are free.
None of us are
I'm gonna raise it. None of us are free.
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 None of us are free if one of us is chained. None of us are free.
None of us are free.
You better listen, my brother. If you do, you can hear there are voices still calling across the years. They are crying across the ocean. They are crying across the land. And they will till we all come to understand. None of us are free.
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 None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. There are people in darkness. They just can't see the light. If we don't say it's wrong, then that says it's right.
That says it's right.
Oh, we got to feel for each other. Let our brothers know we're here. Got to get the message. Send it out all loud and clear.
All loud and clear.
None of us are free.
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 None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. Well, I swear to you, salvation isn't very hard to find, but none of us can find it on our own. We got to join together, spirit, heart, and mind, so all the souls who are suffering know they're not alone. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. None of us are free. Let's do some more oohs.
Ooh,
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
come on, y'all.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free.
None of us are free.
None of us are free.
None of us are free.
None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. If you just look around you, you're gonna see what I say, that the world is getting smaller each passing day.
Passing day.
Now it's time to make some changes. It's time we all realize that the truth is shining right before our eyes.
For our eyes.
None of us are free.
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 None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. None of us, none of us, none of us, none of us,
Not one of us.
none of us, none of us, none of us are free. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. None of us, none of us, none of us, none of us,
Not one of us.
none of us, none of us, none of us are free.
Woo!
So we're gonna end on hope.
Yeah, do the first verse. We who believe.
Yes.
We who believe.
Okay.
You got this. You got this.
You got this, Eric.
I got it. Okay. Now I'm going to blank. Okay. Hold on. 'Cause I had to get
Lyric.
the phone. Okay. So. Hold on. Help me out. First one.
Until the killing of white men.
Oh, but there we go. To the killing of black men, black mother sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mother sons. We who believe in justice cannot rest, cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes.
We who believe.
We who believe in justice cannot rest.
Cannot rest.
We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes. To me, young people come first.
They go first.
They have the courage where we fail. And if I can shed some light as they carry us through the gale, we who believe in justice cannot rest, cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes. We who believe. We who believe in justice cannot rest, cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes. The older I get, the better I know that
right.
the secret of my going on
Sing, Miss Lucy.
is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare
Yes.
to run against the storm. We who believe in justice
cannot rest.
cannot rest.
We who believe in justice cannot rest until it
We who
comes.
believe
We who believe in justice cannot rest.
cannot rest.
We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was distracted again. Apologies. Okay, so another quick thing. There's a bunch of literature over here, handouts and stuff like that. There's some stickers, buttons that I handmade, and some cool little bracelets. Help yourself to whatever you want. Everything over there is free for you. Okay, our next speaker is an amazing guy. He's one of the people I've been organizing with for the past little while. He's Marty Goodman. He's a member of Stand for Assange New York and Socialist Action, and he's a former member of the executive board of the Transport Workers Union, which is City Train and Buses Union, the Local 100. So everybody welcome Marty Goodman.
Yes, hello, how are you? Thank you all for coming out. This is the free speech trial of the 21st century. And even though he's an Australian, Julian Assange is being persecuted by this government, which is mislabeled the Democratic Party, and persecuted for free speech and exposing war crimes. I would like to say that the attack on free speech is all across the board. Now, who talks these days about Biden's attack on free speech against the railroad workers who were prohibited under the National Railway Act to strike? A right that's in the French Constitution and considered a no-brainer throughout the world. Biden put the clamps on the on the railroad workers with the National Railways Act. And all the Democrats, except for two, and of course the Republicans, voted for that move, including AOC's compatriots. Now, I want to say, regarding free speech, I don't want to get too far away from Assange, but this is another one of my specialties for the last several decades, Haiti. The United States is supporting a dictator in Haiti that has killed I don't know how many people and journalists, and now it's on the list of the top human rights violators of journalist practice in the world. It used to be Mexico, and now Haiti is the one. The guy is unelected in Haiti. He's a goon, a killer, in a government full of goons and killers, supported by the United States. He wouldn't be there without Joe Biden. I won't even get into the racist immigration policy we got going on here in this country. I don't have enough time to go into all of that. But damn sure it exists. And the Haitians, 27,000 Haitians, were denied entry by Joe Biden and not given their asylum rights and questions before they were deported back to the horrible conditions in Haiti. Violent conditions, chronic hunger, all the rest of it. Joe Biden, you were at an international conference on democracy and journalism. Where's the democracy in journalism? I talked to my sister last night in South Florida. I shouldn't even said it was my sister, but okay. I said, I'm going to DC to defend Julian Assange. And she said, who's that? I said, he's the fellow who organized Wikileaks and sent out the documents, secret documents. She says, oh, I never heard of him. So there's a huge conspiracy in this country by the corporate media to kill free speech in this country and not even allow people to have decent information and be able to express themselves on TV, in the newspapers, and on the radio. Free speech doesn't exist. It's being challenged in Florida by Governor Santos. You can't even read some of the things about racism. There's nothing to contest about the history of racism in this country, and Santos doesn't want kids to read about it. Well, we're heading towards a bad, bad ending if we let it. I personally don't trust politicians, Democrats or Republicans. I've said why already. But I don't support either one of them. And I think the most powerful force for freedom in this country is a mobilized working people and the trade unionists in their millions to mobilize against the fascist threat in this country, and we could beat them. I want to say, hang on here, even about the Ukraine, isn't it interesting that they discovered all these secret documents were leaked about Ukraine? The U.S. was spying on foreign governments. Hello, hello. All the stuff they're accusing, Assange of being part of, he's part of this Russian conspiracy that doesn't exist. But we've been spying on all our so-called allies. And they talk about Russia. They talk about Russia. And remember, we tapped the phone of the German president and the Brazilian president. We tapped their cell phones. And we talk about Russian meddling in American politics. Well, we need a movement in this country independent of the politicians and the billionaire class. By that I mean both parties. Independent movement like we have right here that could take down these evildoers. And that's what it is. They're torturing Assange. They know that they're doing it. They're dragging this out so that Assange has got to suffer. And I saw John Shipton in New York and his son, Gabriel. And, they just shake their heads about what's going on to their family. It's horrible. Imagine being cooped up in a cell by yourself for years. I don't know, it's 4 years in Belmarsh. I forget how many in the Ecuadorian Embassy in the UK. But really, this is directly from the Middle Ages, this kind of treatment. And we've got to stay mobilized, inform our fellow Americans, quote unquote, and the quote unquote illegals, and the oppressed groups, blacks, Latinos, LGBT folks, mobilize them in the streets and teach them about Julian Assange. He's a marvelous beacon of integrity and dedication to the truth. And I'm always inspired by Julian Assange. And I know that you are too. Keep up the struggle, people.
Everybody give it up for Marty. Marty's amazing. Longtime activist. Okay. Our next speaker is Ian Schlafman, who is a dear friend of mine. He ran for governor in Maryland in 2018 on a joint ticket with Annie Chambers. And then in 2020, he ran for the president of the United States in the Green Party. And he is an activist who has worked on building democratically owned and operated national systems, including basic income, public housing, municipalized utilities, and universal health care. And he is going to join us now to introduce Reverend Annie Chambers. Everybody welcome Ian.
Let's give it up for Mystic. She had my bio ready to go. Look at that. That was amazing. I don't even know that bio. I learned something new. All right. Okay. I promise, Misty, I'll bring the crowd up. So, how y'all doing? Good. Come on, how y'all doing? Good. How y'all doing? Good. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm depressed as hell. I'm depressed as hell. I never thought I would be here again. What are we on? 2, 3, 4 years now? How many years have we been doing this? It makes me so angry. It makes me so angry. I thought this would be a one and done type situation. We'd rally, they'd hear our cry, they'd understand truth and justice, and he would be out. He would be free. He'd be back on the airwaves. He'd be back on The internet telling us new secrets and truths. That's what we need. Didn't work like that, didn't work like that, didn't work like that. But you know what? I learned a lot since then, since I was first here, 4 years ago. I learned about the imperialist empire that is the United States. I learned about its devastating sanction system and how it's been used to cripple economies, to starve children, to deprive medicines of people all over the world. Just the other day, I was listening to a talk from the Cuban Embassy about how Cuba is apparently designated a terrorist state. Who did that? Trump. Who continues to do that? Biden. It's a one-party system, and it's called imperialism. And you know who needs imperialism? US capitalism, European capitalism. Capitalism needs imperialism. Colonialism. Colonialism. Look around us right now. How do we have these nice buildings and structures? It's because blocks away, we got oppressed and poor people that could barely get up out of bed. They could barely get something to eat. They don't have good schools. I'm from Baltimore with Reverend Annie Chambers. How does it look up there? Every day people commute down here. And every day people up there get left behind because the system leaves them behind. It's colonialism abroad, it's colonialism here, it's colonialism everywhere. And it does none of us any good. The other day, Reverend Chambers was on the Convo couch, shout out for the Convo couch. And Pasta asked, what about affirmative action? That's a tough one, right? What about affirmative action? And she said, I don't know if you use this word, but I'm going to use the word that you use anyway. Well, I'm going to use a nicer word. All right. Fuck affirmative action. I'm talking about education for all. You see, that's the games that they play. That's the games that they play. We need education for all. We ain't gonna fight together. No. You see, this is what they do. This is what they do. We are not fighting for crumbs. We ain't fighting for crumbs. We ain't fighting for crumbs. We want everyone to have a good education. Everyone deserves an education. Everyone deserves an education. Everyone deserves an education.
You know why? You know why?
Everyone deserves an education.
Do you know why?
Right.
Because it's racist against black people. That's why.
Listen to me,
That's the
man.
whole point of affirmative action.
Everyone.
Blacks couldn't go to college. So fuck you.
But you're still fighting in scarcity. You gotta understand. Wait, you don't want to hear? You don't want to hear? Fine. You don't want to hear from me? It's fine.
I had to go in the army.
Listen.
I had to go in the army to go to college.
That's wrong, brother. That's wrong.
That means because
You went by the army. You shouldn't have to kill people for education.
we're not gonna argue with him because each of you ain't got no goddamn
Your country
country.
says you ain't
They
going to
give a
school
damn
unless
about
you kill
you.
people. Your country says
You
you
ain't
going to
got
school
no
unless you kill
damn
people.
country.
Relax.
Do your ass when I had to go
The
down?
propaganda game is strong.
If he wasn't there,
You
if
gotta
he wasn't
hear what
there,
I'm trying to
I'd
say.
make you suck my dick.
Okay. It's fine.
If they wasn't
Okay,
there,
no, it's
if
fine.
they wasn't
Listen.
there,
Go ahead,
suck my
Ian.
dick.
The propaganda
Go ahead.
game is strong because
Go
they
ahead,
want
Ian.
us fighting. No. They want us fighting for crumbs. That's what they want. They want us fighting for crumbs.
Fuck.
You don't want to hear the truth.
You lucky they
Everyone deserves an education. Everyone
With the
deserves an
outlaw-
education,
with the
man.
outlaw law.
That's it. Everyone deserves an education. That's the end of the story. You can sit here all day and
No,
you can
because he
argue.
ain't got sense enough.
We
to
ain't
talk.
leaving anybody out.
He ain't got sense enough.
We ain't
to
leaving
talk.
anybody out.
He ain't got
That's how
sense
this is
enough
supposed to
talk.
work.
So ain't no need of talking to him.
Listen.
I'm sorry, Ian.
This is the system, and it makes you fight each other. It makes us fight one another. It makes us fight white and black, Latino and Asian. It makes everybody fight each other. What do they want next? A war with China. What do they want after that? A war with Russia. What do they tell us to fear? Middle Easterners. That's how the system works. It's a racist system designed to divide. That's how the system works. You've got to understand. We've got to educate each other. We've got to take time with people. Because no one is going to understand this right away. No one is going to get it. as soon as you knock on their door. When you're door knocking for an election, you got to tell people where they're at. You got to get in their face. You got to understand where people are. You can't just go ahead and say, everyone should know what I know. It's not going to happen like that. It doesn't work like that. And the reason I am able to fight and stand up and stay so strong is because there are people like Reverend Annie Chambers who have been fighting this war for years, for decades. You were born into this situation. Listen to me very carefully. You were born into this situation. You can ignore it. You can watch the world go to hell. You can watch World War III happen, or you could stand up and do something. Whatever it is you could do, do it. Keep up the pressure. Keep up the war. Keep up the tactics. Keep up fighting. Keep up shouting. It doesn't matter if the numbers are small. What matters is that we keep moving forward. We keep moving forward. Because as a guy before this said, this is going on everywhere. Haiti, Cuba, everywhere. Africa. Did you know CENTCOM has a kill list? Did you know they just have a kill list of people they can go across the world and just kill?
Yes.
Just like who does that? The Ukrainians do that. So one country is allowed to have a kill list, another country isn't. It doesn't make any sense. The more you start thinking about it, the international norms, the more you realize that none of it makes sense. It's all a fiction. It's a string of lies. Just because Biden's too old and senile to realize that he's leaving Trump stuff in place doesn't mean that we have to obey it. It's a fiction. It's a fiction. It's a fiction. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. I'm not gonna let Reverend Chambers take the stage with y'all being so quiet. Y'all got too quiet. Y'all got too quiet. Who hasn't confronted a neighbor and friend with that kind of attitude that we saw? Who hasn't confronted that stand by the flag no matter what attitude? I stand by veterans. But the veterans are the ones who are taking the lead, saying we should not have had to have killed to get an education.
That's right.
We should not have killed to get a house.
Yes.
This is wrong. There's a backdoor draft, and the Iraq war vets knew that from day one. That's how I got militarized. That's how I got into the fight. Anyway, let's hear some energy. Come on. Because I'm not letting Reverend Chambers take the stage so you get some energy. All right. I got to introduce her. I got to introduce her. The living legend herself, Black Panther, communist. I'm going to do all the stuff that she says.
Yay!
And most importantly, a reverend to everyone, including me, because you need it. This is a tough battle. It dogs you. It's a depressing battle. It's really tough to get up here over and over and over again and fight against sentiments like what we're seeing. But we got to keep up the struggle. We have to keep up the struggle. And there's no better leader, no better elder to learn from than the great Mama dear Reverend Annie Chambers. Let's give it up.
Free Julius Assange! Free Julius Assange! Free Julius Assange! Let me tell y'all, thank y'all for allowing Reverend to be here with you. And my day was going good. It's good because I'm here. I'm here. But it makes my heart feel heavy when I can see that they still got their foot on my neck. All right? It makes my heart feel heavy when I can't breathe. Because why is Julius Assange in there? Because he dared to tell the truth about this lying country that we stand up and wave a damn flag. Talking about God bless America. Y'all want to know what I pray every night? God, stop out the damn devil. God, move out the damn devil. Allow him to leave and flee. You know who the devil is? The Republicans and the Democrats. All right? That's the devil. You sit over there in the White House and your ass need to be in the outhouse. That's what we need to do. We have failed some of our young people who feel that they have something to fight for. Why am I gonna go oppress somebody in Cuba so that I can live? You see, I was around when the United States tried to kill Fidel Castro. And Fidel was a friend of mine. And any brother that left here, I want to tell him, damn it, Fidel was a friend of yours. He sent everything, all resources to the black movement in this country. He gave all that Cuba had to this country, to black folks. Everybody got resources from Fidel, quiet as it kept. Y'all, I know y'all like to put Martin up there, but Martin got money from Fidel. All right? Malcolm, my leader, got money from Fidel. Nobody else. But, and quiet as it's kept, I can say it now, I don't give a damn, because I'm 81 years old now. Khrushchev sent us some money. Fidel, you know, old Khrushchev over in Russia, he helped the black movement out, children. So when you want to wave your damn flag and talk about you had to die or you had to come and fight to get an education, that's because your defeat was on your neck and you still didn't get a decent education because you're still out here acting like an ass. All right? You don't act like that. Everybody have a right to an education in America. That's one of your still main rights is education. See, because when you're educated, you can't enslave me. You can't keep me down. Any color. Yes, when somebody asks me, girl, we're going to fight for affirmative action, I say, hell, I got more better things to do. Let's fight and say everybody got a right to an education. Education should be free in the richest country in the world. Education should be free. You understand? There should be no homeless people. There should be, you're talking about you're fighting, and look at all the veterans on the street. Look at all the people went over there and oppressed somebody else in their country for the greedy, rich carpetbaggers here in America. Okay? All these people I see on the, come up to me and say, I'm a veteran, Reverend, pray for me. I say, I sure is pray that you get some damn sense. I'm praying for you, brother. God knows I'm praying for you. Because I have said, and I'm saying now, because make no mistake about it, when Julian Assange and them put out what America is doing, that's why they want to keep it quiet. They headed for a war. They keep trying to pick a war right now. Look at how they keep jabbing at China. Jabbing at. How many times you gonna hit me and I don't hit you back? You understand? They keep jabbing at. There should be no blockade around Cuba. Yeah. There should be no blockade around Cuba. What is Cuba guilty of doing to America? Tell me what they, except Fidel told black people, stand up and fight back and supported them. What is Cuba done? We gotta talk about what's happening here in America with the greedy carpetbaggers and the Democrat and Republican Party and that fool we got now in the White House. You know, somebody said, who you gonna vote for? I tell y'all, other than Ian and Jill Stein, there was one Democrat I did support. Now y'all know he old too. That's Bernie. Cause he talked halfway. I figure if we could kick him, he might do some more things. There I got to be his delegate, okay? And then I seen him for a post with the Democratic Party. I seen the full post of what happening at that Democratic convention, okay? So we have got to understand that we got to stand together. The way this country works is they can use one group against the other. And that's what they're doing. They're using one group against the others, or groups. They will tell the poor whites, of course they can't do that no more now, because thank God y'all young people caught on to that bullshit. They would tell the poor whites, oh, you know, you don't want to be with them because they blacks, they deserve what they get. So they'd give them 2 or 3 more crumbs than they gave us. Or say, why is you gonna drink out that fountain? Or you can come, you know, understand? They can't do that now. That's what I love. I tell y'all, I look at young people and I say, Lord, you allowed me to stay here to see. I may not see the total change, but I'm seeing the change in the young people now. And when I say young, I'm talking about anybody that's under 60 years old. Okay? I'm talking about them. Because you get to see the difference in the way things were then to things now. And the lies that were told then cannot be told now. I watched in a meeting how some Democrats came in and tried to incorporate some Hispanics. You understand? That's who they're trying to use now in the poll group. Oh, y'all come over here, we want to talk to y'all. And my thing was, hey, wait a minute. You said this was for the Pope. Well, damn, here is the Pope Queen here, me. So I'm going to talk. If you're going to talk to us, you're going to talk to all of us. You see, but we have got to talk about how America has to change. And yeah, I believe, I have faith that y'all young people will change it. Y'all will change it. Because we cannot allow America to go down the road that it's been going since the beginning of America. In the first place, they came here with a lie. They used the lie. They came with a press. And we have got to understand that we got to say no more. No more. No more, America. No more will we take this from you. We're saying all over, when the young people come to me and you know, I support Julian, you know, I got a letter that I'm writing. I don't know how I'm gonna get it to him, but I'm gonna give it to the press and let the press, ask the press what they printed, to tell him how much I commend him and respect him for allowing himself to be on the front line and fighting for justice. Because that's what he's fighting for, justice for all. He's fighting for what's right for all people. That's what he's fighting for. That's what he stood up for. He's telling the truth on the lying America that we have. But I said to you, I've been saying it because let me tell y'all, yeah, they said Reverend Annie Chamber, and I'm a Reverend. See, when people say, well, you're supposed to be, I said, no, don't tell me what I'm supposed to be. I know what I am. I'm not a bullshitting Reverend. I'm not a reverend that do Sunday morning disco. Because I don't have time. I'm about my Father's work. But I tell you what the Holy Spirit, I'm going to leave y'all with this word. I'm going to leave you with this. Revolution! 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 We got to, we in a revolution. And we got to thank you.
Reverend Annie Chambers, give it up, from Baltimore. I'm Ann Wilcox. I'm an organizer with DC Action for Assange. I want to give you a few PSAs and announcements here while Reverend Annie's entourage leaves the stage. But thank you for being here. One thing is we're going to have an after event at Busboys and Poets at the 450 K Street location. That's one of the busboys over here. Feel free to come over after the rally ends, get something to eat, mingle with the other people here who are here at the rally. I also want to mention that we had a very successful lobby day this morning, one of the first ones we've had for Assange in terms of in-person lobbying. We were trying to get sign-ons to the Rashida Tlaib Dear Colleague letter, and that went out calling on the DOJ to drop the charges. The signatures went in with the letter went in with only 7 signatures, but that's good. AOC signed on at the end, most of the squad, Kazar from Texas. So we got 7 good progressive members to sign. And I'm sure some of the other speakers can touch on that. And keep contacting your members. Ask them to, pressure Garland to drop the charges and sign on to these Dear Colleague letters. A couple other quick things. We have a vigil twice a month at Garland's home in Bethesda. Look at our Facebook page and our website for more information. In May, it'll be the 7th and the 21st, late in the afternoon. We're right across from Garland's home with big banners for Assange to pressure him. May 3rd, we have another little gathering for World Press Freedom Day, and we expect that we're going to go to different major press offices with calling on them to support Assange because they are also members of the press. And finally, I want to ask all those people who are active with DC Action for Assange to raise your hands. There's a lot of people here who have worked really hard. Thank you for all your support and for pulling this event together. And I understand that I now have the great honor of calling John Kiriakou up here to speak, CIA whistleblower and someone who's really put his life on the line for Assange and for press freedom, and he can take it from here.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm going to keep it short, I promise. Every time I come, I essentially say the same thing, so I'm going to say something different today. This case against Julian Assange is progressing, and it shouldn't be progressing. It should be dying. It should be withering. Barack Obama, for all his faults, and believe me, there were a lot. It was Barack Obama that put me in prison, me and 7 other whistleblowers. But even Barack Obama said about Julian Assange that the Justice Department in that case had the New York Times problem. The New York Times problem being if you prosecute a publisher or a journalist like Julian Assange, then you have to prosecute every publisher and every journalist for doing his or her job at the Washington Post and the New York Times and every other mainstream outlet in America. And that wasn't going to work. Donald Trump thought differently. But then when Joe Biden was elected, it gave him the opportunity to reverse this wrong, this stupid idea to prosecute a journalist. And he hasn't. He hasn't. So I've come to the conclusion, I think you would agree with me, that this case is no longer just about Julian Assange. This case is about the Constitution. This case is about the First Amendment, freedom of speech and freedom of press. If Julian Assange goes to prison, then all of us are liable to be prosecuted for something. What they've always wanted is what the British have, this Secrets Act. What's it called, Joe? The Official Secrets Act, right? In which you can't even utter a single word that might possibly, perhaps, maybe someday be potentially classified, and then you end up going to prison. That's what they want here. That's what they want. So yes, we have to stand up for Julian Assange like we always do, and like we always have. But we should also be standing up for our constitutional rights, because they're trying to take them away from us. Them and them. I mentioned to my friend Lou Wolf a minute ago, well, he's the one who actually mentioned it, and I agreed. We're standing in the shadow of two buildings, the Department of Justice and the J. Edgar Hoover building, the two most inappropriately named buildings anywhere in America. Anywhere in America. There's no justice in here, and there's certainly no justice over here. And that's why we have to continue the fight. So keep up the fight. I'm glad that there are so many people here. I wish there were 20 times as many people, but that's okay. Because even if there were just one person, this is an opportunity to educate. So from here, we should go to our friends and educate our friends and hope that they go on and do the same kind of thing. That's why we come to these events every time they're held. So, freedom for Julian. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Who may I give this to? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, everybody give it up for John Kiriakou. He's amazing. Somebody that we could all, he leads by example for sure. Okay, so coming up next we have Gerry Condon, who is a Vietnam-era veteran and war resistor, a former president of the Veterans for Peace, and a member of the crew that sailed the Golden Rule to Cuba. Gerry, as an author, has written articles published in Common Dreams, LA Progressive, and Peace and Planet News. Everybody give it up for Gerry.
Hello. Is it on? Hello. Hello. Okay, great. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free the truth and the truth tellers. Free Julian Assange. Julian Assange has been a friend of Veterans for Peace for many years, and Veterans for Peace loves and respects and supports Julian Assange ever since he and Chelsea Manning released the collateral murder video showing us the horrible truth about U.S. war crimes in Iraq. We've been friends with Julian Assange. Our Veterans for Peace members in London, England, have been huge supporters of Julian. They've been inside and outside the Ecuadorian Embassy there, supporting him over the years. I was really pleased when I saw a photo of some of our friends, Elizabeth Murray, who's here now, from Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, along with Ann Wright and Ray McGovern and others visiting Julian Assange in the embassy a couple of years ago, and Julian was wearing his Veterans for Peace t-shirt, which was great. Aside from the collateral murder video, Chelsea Manning, and with the help of Julian Assange, released the Afghanistan War Diaries, which were essentially after-action reports, battle-after-battle reports from the U.S. Army in Afghanistan. And what they showed was that, contrary to the lies we were getting from our own government and military leaders, first of all, the U.S. was not winning that war. That's become rather apparent, certainly by now, to everybody. And secondly, it was common and typical for civilians to be killed in those U.S. military actions in Afghanistan. That's also not a surprise, but it's something that we learned from Julian Assange. We learned a lot about the lies that are told. You know, this government never tells the truth, especially about the wars it's committing, and this is important information. Of course, a lot of veterans learn that truth the hard way. And Veterans for Peace is dedicated to abolishing nuclear weapons and war. And we're also, in the meantime, our mission is to restrain our government from intervening either covertly or overtly in the internal affairs of other nations. And of course, that's what they're great at. Regime change everywhere. We see not only lies about the overt wars, but lies about the regime change wars. The lies they're telling now about Nicaragua. Don't believe a thing you see in the media about Nicaragua. Reverend Annie was talking about, well, we should have free education here. Well, we got free education in Nicaragua. Did you know that? It's a rather poor country, but it's got free education, free health care. So does Cuba. And it's for those very reasons that the U.S. is trying to overthrow those countries. So I'm actually here in Washington, D.C. right now with a historic anti-nuclear sailboat, which is now owned by Veterans for Peace. In 1958, 4 Quaker peace activists, led by a retired World War II Navy commander, tried to sail this boat from Los Angeles into the Marshall Islands to interfere with U.S. nuclear testing and to tell the truth about the radiation that was floating all around the globe from all these nuclear tests. And they were stopped in Hawaii by the Coast Guard, thrown in jail, but they brought worldwide attention to the problem of radiation and built support for the 1963 Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. It was signed by President Kennedy and along with the USSR and the UK. So we're actually sailing all over the country, educating people about the growing danger of nuclear war. And we happen to be in Washington, D.C. right now. The boat, this historic wooden anti-nuclear sailboat, is parked right now. And we're on a mooring ball down at the wharf. And you can come down and see us and visit us there and have a tour of the boat if you like on Thursday or Friday between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. We're right there on the wharf at the day dock across from the Shake Shack. So with that in mind, I got invited to speak here. I was very honored to be with you all and all these great speakers. So I was thinking, well, what about nuclear weapons? Is there anything that Julian Assange and Wikileaks is there a connection there that I could make? And so I Googled it, and sure enough, I Googled nuclear weapons and WikiLeaks, and sure enough, up pops WikiLeaks top 10 greatest hits about nuclear issues. And most of them are about corruption in the nuclear power and safety violations and accidents that happened that nobody heard about. And a couple of them also have to do with nuclear weapons. For example, in December 2010, WikiLeaks revealed that it was reported that there were 180 confirmed U.S. tactical nuclear weapons in Europe. So that was 2010. By now, who knows how many. They're stationed in 5 different countries, and now they're, of course, moving nuclear weapon systems and ABM systems, which are part of a first strike strategy, right up to Russia's borders, which is part of the reason we're having this war in Ukraine right now. So another interesting item here that came up was about the Trident nuclear submarine in the UK. Safety and security issues with UK Trident nuclear weapon systems. In an exclusive report to WikiLeaks, Trident nuclear weapons submariner Royal Navy able seaman William McNally, aged 25, stated, quote, "Please make sure this information is released. I don't want to be in prison without anyone knowing the truth about the detailed nuclear safety programs," he says, has been gathering over a year, safety problems. "This is bigger than me," he said, "it's bigger than all of us. So we are so close to nuclear disaster, it is shocking. And yet everybody is accepting the risk to the public. Our nuclear weapon systems are the prime target, and we are wide open to attack. We must unite globally in order to eliminate the biggest threat the world has seen." And I think we have the naked truth right happening here.
You're gonna fuck everything up for everybody. Do you know what he's doing in there? I do know. Oh, do you? I do. He actually. It ain't worth your life. Oh, really? Yeah. I went to prison, asshole. It ain't worth your life. Come on. He's got gasoline on him. He's got gasoline all over his face. It ain't worth your life.
What the fuck's wrong with you?
You weren't making a very good point.
Jackass.
Officer, he's got gasoline in it.
Grab that later.
Hey, how are you? Hold on to that.
So desperate times inspire desperate actions, and we should all think about what we can do that's not self-destructive, that still shows the commitment that this young man has to make a strong statement for the truth. In closing, I would just say that if Garland Nixon follows through with his promise to extradite Julian Assange to the United States, there's going to be hell to pay in this country. It's going to be the biggest mistake perhaps that Garland Nixon has ever made. And Veterans for Peace and many others will be in the streets demanding freedom for Julian, demanding freedom for the truth. And just like we were able to
I don't know either.
Chelsea Manning, we will free
Like the ocean.
Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange.
9-3.
We never seen this guy.
7-9-5.
We never seen this guy. Go. Not to do it again.
I hope you're going to have him evaluated. Suicidal. Officer? No, I do know.
I understand you're passionate about Assange, guy. I hope you don't go to jail. I'm hoping you don't.
People in the FBI and the intelligence agencies. We're not forgetting about Julian Assange. We're here to free Julian Assange. And we're going to keep coming back. And we're going to keep growing. We demanded it at Race Against War Machine thousands of us. We were there at the Lincoln Memorial Park to the White House. We demanded his freedom. Because without journalists like Julian Assange, who's going to tell us, independent journalists, independent publishers, who's going to tell us about the Third World War that the United States is starting, that the people of this city are starting? Who's going to tell us about the dystopian infrastructure, of the totalitarian infrastructure that's being built all around us every day? Medical freedom, taking away mass surveillance, mass online censorship. We rely on journalists like Julian Assange to do that. And I hope everyone got to see John and Gabriel as they recently traversed across the country with Ithaca. It's an amazing documentary. I hope if anybody hasn't watched it.
Yes, sir. Can I get a unit to assist me on the corner of 10th and Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest? Probably with Oregon Avenue.
I just wanted to keep my comments brief and thank the whistleblowers, thank the publishers like John, thank everybody who makes this possible and who risks everything to tell us what's at stake when the mainstream media and the major political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, would rather keep us in the dark as they maintain this totalitarian oligarchy and empire that takes everything from people in this country, billions of dollars, instead of putting it into food, housing, healthcare, the things that we need, and turns it into bombs to kill people abroad and takes our freedoms in the name of preserving that system. So thanks a lot, everybody who's here and everybody who organized this.
I understand.
did a fantastic job. It was a great event. If you missed it, you should have been there. It was really good. So up next, we have Skip Kaltenhauser, who's a writer and a member of National Press Club. He also wrote a piece a while back called Julian Assange, the Man Who Knew Too Much. You should definitely check that out. Everybody give it up for Skip.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to exercise my stage fright. I
don't know.
want to mention the press club in a couple of contexts. One, that's where I first became aware of Julian Assange, in that I was there when he did the presentation of the collateral murder tape. I didn't know what to expect. I just had a breakfast and happened to wander in on it. And then I saw this tape, which is basically a snuff film, and I watched shock go across everybody in the room. Particularly, that shock was doubled up and tripled up when we listened to the banter of the pilots. If you don't know the collateral murder tape, you can find it online pretty quick. You need to see it, but it will not leave you whistling. It shows the execution of a dozen or so civilians in Iraq, including, from the sky, including 2 Reuters journalists. And the Pentagon lied through its teeth about what had actually taken place. The Reuters organization, who lost 2 employees, tried for years to find out what was going on. If you want to hear what actually happened, I would recommend you go to the Belmarsh Tribunal that was in Sydney recently and listen to Dean Yates, who was the Reuters Baghdad bureau chief at the time. And he will lay out in chilling detail the process of trying to get the truth out of the Pentagon. By the way, if you go to that Belmarsh Tribunal in Sydney, you can hear John do a very eloquent, as always, piece. The other reason I want to mention the National Press Club is that of all the major journalist, press freedom, and human rights organizations in the world, they've all come out for Julian Assange. They all understand the danger, the injustice to him, and the danger that the prosecution or persecution holds for every journalist in the world, domestic and foreign. Every organization for press freedom, every major one, and for human rights, save one. And I have no idea why, well, I have theories, but the National Press Club has not yet stood up for Julian Assange. They've basically boycotted the issue for the years that some of us have pushed it. I hope that changes soon, because it's a bad stain, frankly, on what should be a more noble institution. It does do good things, but this is not one of them. And I think part of it might come down to this town is a company town now, and the main company is the military-industrial complex. When I saw Assange present the collateral murder tape, all I could think of was he had stepped into the crosshairs of fame, and there are going to be a number of people not happy about what he was doing in exposing that our government was lying to us about the forever wars. Do not underestimate the incredible influence, including on media, that the military-industrial complex has. In part, they do a lot of very lucrative advertising, and a lot of people, a lot of journalists who are not very secure these days, and I don't blame them, are looking for their potentially next job if things fall through with the journalism dreams. And so a lot of them go into PR, and a lot of them cover the military-industrial complex, and a lot of them look for those companies for lucrative jobs afterwards. But whatever the reason, any journalist that hasn't stood up strong for Julian Assange is out on thin ice and putting everybody else out on thin ice in the profession. Because if they, as been pointed out, if they go after him successfully, and basically they've done it successfully, the man has spent 4 years in a dungeon in Belmarsh, confined in the Ecuadorian Embassy for a long time before that. It's been a successful destruction of Julian Assange, and I hope his misery ends soon with freedom. But it has me thinking of what Daniel Ellsberg told me, and has told a lot of anybody that would listen. Dan's one of the strongest advocates for Assange. The government did things to Daniel Ellsberg that, to his judge, so shocked the judicial conscience that the judge kicked the case against Dan Ellsberg. Dan Ellsberg will tell anyone who'll listen that what was done to him isn't as bad as what has been done to Assange. So I'm asking now, we have Merrick Garland, who was very nearly on the Supreme Court, certainly thought to be a major contender worthy of it. I have to ask him, where is his offendable judicial conscience? Is he going to find it? Because if not, I guess his legacy is going to be pretty etched. Anyway, thank you very much.
I get distracted a lot, I'm sorry. Okay.
Hi, everybody. It's Elizabeth Murray again here. May I make a small announcement? The grandfather of whistleblowers, who is a dear, dear friend and defender of Julian Assange, none other than Daniel Ellsberg, has just today received the Sam Adams Award for Integrity and Intelligence. He has received the Whistleblower Award. This was a ceremony that took place earlier today in the privacy of Dan's home. There wasn't a Zoom or anything, but it was recorded and photographs are being taken. So in the next few days, look out for the social media and publicity for Dan's award. But I just wanted to mention Dan here because Dan is one of Julian's staunchest advocates, and Julian was inspired, of course, by what Dan Ellsberg did. For those who don't remember, Dan leaked the Pentagon Papers back in the early 1970s and almost went to jail for it, but didn't. But let's give it up for Dan Ellsberg.
Great announcement. I hadn't heard that yet. Okay, our next speaker, and I think final speaker, I'm a little frazzled, so I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little all over the place. So next up we have Joe Lauria, who is an author, journalist, and currently the editor-in-chief of Consortium News. He was a UN correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, and the Sunday Times of London. Lauria began his professional work as a 19-year-old stringer for the New York Times. And also, huge shout out to Consortium News. I don't think anybody does better coverage of the Julian Assange case than they do. They are on it constantly. They're amazing. Everybody please follow and support them. They are fantastic. And everybody welcome Joe Lauria.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't think anyone could top the affirmative action guy. Never been to a rally quite like this one. When we spoke, and she's at more rallies than I. When I spoke here in October at this very spot, there were two men holding up their poster. So there's some progress because there are sticks now holding it up. They were holding it up there with their hands for hours and nobody even noticed. Also at that rally in October, I read a letter that I'd written to Merrick Garland, the Attorney General. But since that time, there's a far more important letter that's been written, that's been referred to today. That's from Rashida Tlaib, the member of Congress, that's now being signed by Congress members. Some of the people here were in the office buildings of the House this morning, lobbying staff members to get their members to sign as well. Now this letter, I see it as part of an increasing pressure by politicians and the public. And this pressure is starting to show some progress. In Australia, 2 weeks ago in the federal parliament, Senator David Shoebridge directly asked the Foreign Minister Penny Wong whether the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, had brought up Julian Assange with Joe Biden when he met him in San Diego. Wong didn't answer the question. She waffled. She said that Australia cannot interfere in an ongoing legal process in another country. Well, despite that statement, the Australian government has, through diplomatic intervention since 2007, freed 6 Australian citizens from foreign jails. In at least 2 of those cases, there was an ongoing legal process. So Penny Wong is full of crap, and Albanese is not answering the question. Did he bring it up with Joe Biden? In one of those cases, Sean Turnell, the foreign secretary or foreign minister at the time, made a strong statement to the government of Myanmar to get him out. In the David Hicks trial, David Hicks case, there never was a trial. He was in Guantanamo. So those are 2 examples where the Australian government has intervened. They don't want to intervene in the Assange case because they're subservient to the United States. The entire submarine saga going on in Australia shows what a lack of sovereignty that Australia is displaying. And we've had 2 former prime ministers, Malcolm Turnbull, and even more forcefully, Paul Keating, making that point very strongly. The pressure, however, from Shoebridge and 30 other members of parliament in Australia are getting to Albanese. He encouraged the High Commissioner in London, that's the Australian ambassador to Britain, to go last week and visit Julian Assange in Belmarsh prison. First time that he's gotten that kind of direct consular assistance from the highest member of the Australian government in Britain. John Shipton, Assange's father, told us on our webcast, CN Live, last week. He called that a tremendous and substantial development. And he said that this is the beginning of the end of the ordeal for his son. Albanese has been forced now to finally say that he has brought up the Assange case with U.S. officials at the appropriate level. He's never even said that before, but this pressure got him to say that. What is the appropriate level? A head of government or head of state? He won't say that. Now, Biden is visiting Australia next month. People are expecting that finally the pressure will get to Albanese enough to tell Biden, free Julian Assange. There's another very bizarre way in which the pressure is starting to hit home. It's kind of a case of psychological appropriation, which is taking something from your enemy and making it your own. I remember when Jimi Hendrix played the Star-Spangled Banner at Woodstock, and the outcry that that caused amongst conservatives, people as old as I am here might remember that. There was outrage that he was able to play this, our national anthem, in such a disrespectful way. Then you go 34 years later, I walk into Madison Square Garden in 2004 at the Republican National Convention, and what do I hear on the loudspeakers? Jimi Hendrix playing the national anthem. The Republican National Convention. They've appropriated that, what they hated, what they were outraged before. And now Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer and yesterday the State Department have all said these famous words: journalism is not a crime. Of course, they were not talking about this. They were talking about the government of Wall Street Journal in Russia. Where have we heard those words before?
The indecent can't do that.
Are they aware of what they're saying?
Anything you want to say?
Are they
Oh
trolling
no,
us?
it's on the way.
Okay,
Just want to get him secure. All right. You go back and have a seat. All right.
And something like that we're using it. I really don't know. It's very strange to hear the two leaders.
When he's coming? Yeah.
the Senate, both parties, and the State Department saying journalism is not a crime. So what is stopping Biden from dropping the case? Dropping the charges? That's one, yes, cowardice. I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it's a political calculation. Before the DNC leaks in Vault 7, for which Julian Assange was not charged, Biden, as the vice president, told Meet the Press in 2010 that the Biden administration, the Obama administration then, could not charge Julian Assange. They could not prosecute him unless they could prove that he actually stole the documents. If they were handed to him as a journalist, they couldn't do anything about it. Guess what? They didn't charge Julian because they couldn't prove he stole it. Well, what changed? If you read the indictment, he's still indicted on those same charges from 2010. He was never charged with Vault 7. What changed is that the DNC and the CIA would be very, very upset with Joe Biden. He's got to work against his own party, which he's opposed to, and the CIA, who are upset about something Assange is not Assange for. But that changed the political calculus completely. I think that's why Biden won't drop these charges, even though he said on the record on Meet the Press that they could not bring these charges against Assange because there's no evidence that Assange stole the documents. Unlike Albanese in Australia, there's not the groundswell of public and political support in the United States right now. Tlaib's letter is a great step forward, and so are rallies like this one. And even though it may seem insignificant, it is adding to the pressure that's building on Biden to at last drop these charges. Thank you very much.
Okay, I lied to you. It was not the last speaker because Max Blumenthal just showed up. I'm very excited. Okay, so let me find his bio here. Max Blumenthal is the editor-in-chief of The Gray Zone. He's an award-winning journalist and the author of several books. His work has appeared in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, The Nation, and other publications. He's produced many video reports and several documentaries. In May 2021, Max broke the Assange CIA UC Global Sheldon Adelson story, and we're very excited to have him here today. Max Blumenthal, everybody.
Yay, Max!
Yeah, I understand. I'm trying to get
Sorry, thank you. Sorry, I had to pick up my kid, and well, Julian Assange can't pick up his kids. He's just, I'm lucky I can do that. One of Julian Assange's kids is named Max. His son's, it's a good name. His other son is named Gabriel. And he can't do the basic things that every parent takes for granted and complains about day after day and whines about. You hear all these parents whining about their kids. His kids, he gets tackled if he tries to hug them before his mouth is searched, before his cavities are searched, when he tries to hug his kids. Think about that. 4 years in Belmarsh of that kind of psychological and it's physical torture when you can't touch your kids. He's being physically tortured by the Merrick Garland Justice Department. And I really want to thank Comrade Misty and everyone, all the soldiers, the frontline soldiers who brought this together, who made it possible. I hear I missed some highlights today, or maybe some lowlights, I'm sorry. Also, Anya can't be here. She's on a book deadline, and her book heavily involves many of the leaks that were provided to us by WikiLeaks, especially the Stratfor files. Stratfor was basically the private CIA. It's a company that was contracting for U.S. intelligence and was involved in many of the preliminary activities leading up to the coup in Venezuela. And we learned so much about the strategy of the US and its arsonists inside Venezuela through the Stratfor leaks that WikiLeaks provided. And Anya's book is about the coup, the corporate coup in Venezuela. It just, there's so many layers to WikiLeaks and how it helped us in the public and how it helped journalists and how it even helped the New York Times and the Washington Post, which sat on their hands until recently. We know recently the squad is getting involved. This is great news. It's great news that Rashida Tlaib finally came forward and called for Julian Assange's release. It's great news that the Washington Post editors, after supporting Julian Assange's arrest, after cheering on the campaign against him, that they, the New York Times, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, are on board here. All the, human rights industrial complex NGOs are finally on board, but there was a long period when they weren't, and it was the real frontline soldiers like yourselves, the independent journalists who held it down and kept this going until they could finally come forward. What is the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, what are they all reporting on this week? Leaks, classified leaks from U.S. military intelligence, Defense Intelligence Agency leaks on Ukraine and Russia. And it really makes you wonder when these media organizations which participated in the campaign to demonize Julian Assange for revealing classified information are first out of the gate on revealing classified information. Makes you wonder, was this planted somehow? We can't really trust them. At the Gray Zone, we've had more leaks on the Ukraine proxy war this past year than my kid's diaper. And they didn't touch them. We had the leaks on how the British intelligence agencies planned to attack the Kerch Bridge linking Crimea to the Russian Federation. Not one mainstream Western organization touched it. But Julian Assange, the precedent is so extreme that finally these organizations are speaking up for him. Why is he in jail? Why is he being tortured? It's pretty simple. It's because he embarrassed the CIA. You cannot embarrass the CIA. The CIA is a secret government with an over $80 billion a year black budget, which coordinates through various fusion centers and joint operations rooms with the people inside this building, which is ironically named for Robert F. Kennedy, who is spied on by the person that the FBI building across the street is named for, J. Edgar Hoover, and demonized in many of the same ways that Julian Assange was. Julian Assange, by releasing the Vault 7 files, this immediately triggered the secret indictment that the whole mainstream media denied even existed. And so I want to feel optimistic because I start to see all this momentum. I start to see the campaign that you all have started, the flame that you have all kept flickering, start to intensify with Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, start to finally call for Julian Assange and understand what the stakes are. But at the same time, I have to keep my optimism guarded because we are living in an intelligence state, and Russiagate was a coup d'etat carried out by the intelligence services to consolidate their control over our political structure. And so we need to look back at precedents for the release of political prisoners and understand what we're going to be up against if there is any real momentum to release Julian Assange. In July 1999, President Bill Clinton was the first president to visit the Pine Ridge American Indian Reservation in the second poorest county in America. I've been to Pine Ridge. It's one of the most upsetting places to visit. Deep desperation and poverty. You can go visit the Wounded Knee Cemetery, where you will see the victims of the massacre of Wounded Knee in one of the last stands of Native American resistance before the reservation system was consolidated. They were gunned down by U.S. cavalry, Gatling guns, the 7th Cavalry, I believe, and they're buried next to many U.S. Veterans. You'll see many U.S. flags next to their memorial. And throughout the 1970s and 80s, but especially in the 70s, the FBI infiltrated the Pine Ridge Reservation It used its agents. It basically established a Vichy regime authority there to destroy the American Indian movement from within and from without. Leonard Peltier, who was a member of the American Indian movement, was arrested and accused of killing 2 FBI agents that were involved in this campaign of infiltration and subversion as an extension of the COINTELPRO campaign. And Leonard Peltier is still in prison. He suffered so much through the lockdowns of COVID. He said that lockdown was like living through hell. And he's still alive. But in 1999, when Bill Clinton went to visit Pine Ridge, and this was to push corporate investment in the Pine Ridge Reservation. It was a bizarre initiative, but he was still the first president. Fear coursed through the hallways of the FBI because it was said that the Lakota Indians demanded that Bill Clinton pardon Leonard Peltier ahead of an important presidential re-election campaign for his successor, Al Gore. And so the FBI marched through these streets. They staged a march, and they basically said to Bill Clinton and Al Gore that we will defy you and attack you from within if you release this political prisoner, Leonard Peltier, if you release this one man who is already in failing health in federal prison. That is what the CIA is currently doing with Julian Assange. That is what the MI6 is currently doing with Julian Assange. That is what their assets in the media and in politics and in the NGOs are currently doing, and they will escalate if there is any momentum. And that's why it's so important that we have to be out here, because we are up against the most powerful secret government ever created in human history in the CIA and the national security state of the US empire. And Julian Assange still has a target on his back. They do not want him out speaking again. And if he is released, this will be a victory for all of humanity, all of the people who've suffered from the CIA and FBI's subversion and the MI6's subversion. So we need to produce this victory. We need to be out here because it's not just about Julian Assange, although fundamentally it's about having him have the ability to do what I did today and be able to pick up his kids and complain about fatherhood. And we'll just ignore that. We're not gonna feed the trolls. We have been here year after year. We were out here on the coldest day of the year in front of the Justice Department. We'll be out here on the hottest day of the year in the swampiest of swamps. We will be out here to produce this victory for humanity with the freedom of Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Thank you.
What a day, you guys. Jeez Louise. Okay, I'm pretty sure we're done now. I hope. Okay, thanks everybody for coming out and for dealing with the craziness. I appreciate it. Also, shout out, that's our truck. That's James. Everybody, give it up for James. He's amazing. He does our trucks every time we come out. He is incredible. He is part of the family at this point. So everybody check out dcmobileads.com. That's where you can find him and use his a small business owner. Please support him. And don't forget Busboys and Poets after this. Everybody's welcome. And I think that's it. I hope that's it. Okay, thank you everybody for coming out and free Julian Assange.